Without further ado, I'll just remind listeners and participants and everyone, kindly mute your mic. I can tell there are some people whose mics are not muted.
Well, mute.
Yeah, it's yours. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Please keep your mic muted unless you have to speak. Please do not compel the moderators to have to mute your mic. I will, without further ado, I will call upon the Vice President of the National Olympic and Sports Committee, Madame Felicite Rwemarika, who is also an IOC member, to give us our opening remarks this afternoon. Thank you. Madame Felicite, over to you. You need to unmute your mic, please. Madame Felicite, okay,
I'm
good.
there, yes. Yeah, I also want to welcome you all in this webinar. It was organized by the Rwanda National Olympic Committee in partnership with the Ministry of Sports. So this is just something that has happened because of this pandemic, because it has also affected the sports movement. As you know, that sport is a major contributor to economical and social development. Its role is well recognized by governments, including in the political declaration of the 2030 Agenda, which reflects on the contribution sports make to the empowerment of women and of young people, individuals and communities, as well as to health, education and social inclusion objectives. Sports, just like any other aspect of life's social events, has been greatly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, majorly affecting the sporting calendar, with professional leagues everywhere suspending their activities to limit the spread of the virus. Social and physical distancing measures, lockdowns of businesses, schools, and overall social life, which has become commonplace to curtail the spread of the disease, have also disrupted many regular aspects of life, including sports and physical activity. This webinar will, among other aspects, highlight the challenges COVID-19 has posed to both the sporting world and to physical activities and well-being, including for vulnerable groups. The impact of COVID-19 on sporting events and the application for social development. I truly hope that this webinar will be insightful and will generate recommendations from participants and panelists to curtail the impact of COVID-19 on sporting events and support the safe reopening of sporting events and tournaments, as well as to maximize the benefits that sport and physical activity can bring in the age of COVID-19 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madame Felicite, for those opening remarks and keeping it brief. We will, I'm sure, be counting on your wealth of expertise as the conversation goes on. I would then like to invite our first panelist, Honorable Sani Ndanusa, an engineer by training. I hope I got the spellings of the names right, engineer. I read that you're a minister and that you're a member of the Commonwealth Games Federation and also a member of the International Tennis Federation Wheelchair Committee. That's a very loaded CV. I'm sure you have a lot to share with us. We know it can't get enough time for you, So we will give you 10 minutes to share with us your remarks for us this afternoon, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harbour. I must first of all thank the Olympic Committee of Rwanda, especially Mr. President, Ambassador Velez, for giving me this opportunity to participate in this all-important WANIBA. I must say it's very timely in the sense that the world economy and all facets of life in the world was shocked because of the sudden entrance of the COVID-19. In some legal terms, we can call it's a force majeure to entire sectors. And I want to say, as of today, the COVID-19 is still ravaging, because as of today, I want to mention, we have about 8 million cases all over the world, 4 million recoveries, and 439 deaths. In Africa in particular, we have about 254 cases as of today, and we have 117 recoveries. That is quite a moderate compared to other continents of the world. But having said this, we must rise up to the occasion. And I want to say its effect to the global sporting coming down to Africa and to national sports is really, really very high. Very high in the sense that as of today, I think our sporting activities and the economic value of sporting activity is almost at comatose. But there is hope after COVID-19. And that hope is very, very firm. And we are very big, we are believers of the hope ahead of COVID-19. And this conference today have given me an opportunity to add my voice to the recovery strategy and also to keep the hope alive. And Mr. Harbour, I thought I'm going to get some 25 minutes, but just 10 minutes ago, you sent me a paper that says I should only have 10 minutes. But having said that, being a tennis player, you believe that we will not cut nappy. I'll do my best within the 10 minutes. And I want to say, first of all, post the impact of COVID-19 presently, because it's still there, is very, very high on the athletes, on the clubs, on the government, and all the stakeholders. But having said that, let me look at post-COVID-19 specifically, what happened. We must review the national sports policy to suit post-COVID-19 situation. That is to say, to deal with the emergency. We must look at the policies, because today we are at the period where it's an unforeseen. And these previous policies were set as an ideal situation. Today, Mr. Moderator, we are in a situation that is not ideal. So therefore, policy direction, including funding, including all the stakeholding in sports, have to be improved upon and reviewed, so that at least we can accommodate the sport itself, the athletes, the clubs, and all stakeholders, government especially in Africa. They are the biggest drivers of sports in the continent. So we must also see how we accommodate them. We must get some create new legislation that is going to bring more that will improve doing business in sport, such as tax rebate, because economic issues have arrived. The sponsors are not getting as much as they will normally get, because of some of them have been locked down for the past 3 months. To pick up is going to be more difficult. So we've had to find a way of giving them some soft landing by way of tax rebate. Tax rebate is a very big subject, Mr. Moderator. With time, we can discuss it, but that is to say, any company that sponsor a tournament, we will have to get the cost of that tournament so that it will be counted as tax paid by that company. This is by way of encouraging sponsors to come and continue with the sports. This should encourage investors. And there must be political will to do this, because we know various governments are also in difficulty trying to look at other priorities. They have agriculture, they have food, they have economic issues like industries, health, but definitely sport must continue. And for sports to continue, we must find this soft landing for sponsors. Well, we are looking at palliative, that is to say, the IFs to the confederation, to national body, up to the state. And in Nigeria, we have states, so we have state associations. We must provide palliative right from the IF so that it comes down to the national federations. But also, we must watch how we administer the palliative. We know in our continent, of course, sport is not left out of issues of corruption, but this time, all the stakeholders on sports must be upright, because the situation we are in now needs all to put heads together and deliver sports. So this palliative, when they come, though we advise the IFs to bring it under some template, how they will go down, so that we'll be able to keep the athletes coming back economically, so that the sports can continue. They don't have to go out and look for other areas for economic gains. Changes in the rule governing the sports. We must look at the rules. And this tax goes to the IF still, the International Federation, Confederation, National Federation, and to state, so that we look at the timing of each game. We look at even the kitting for safety, and also for timing, the time we stay on the sports, the rest we give, so that at least there will be this health issue that there must be a change in all that we do before. Even time, the length of a particular game must be shortened. Mr. Moderator, I was just watching a tournament last night in Serbia, in Belgrade. They are now playing 4 games instead of 6. And then you have 3-3 tiebreak. Am I right? I hope you looked at it. Yes. So such things should happen. And also we can look at renovation of sporting infrastructure, like the dressing rooms, substitute benches. We must redesign them to suit the post-COVID-19 situation. We must meet the COVID-19 protocols. These protocols include, of course, not limited to spacing, hand washing, hand cleaning, general hygiene in the infrastructure. The sport infrastructure, like the dressing room, substitution bench, all should now be redesigned to match the COVID-19 protocols. Collaboration is also needed within the African nation to look inward for the solution. Because you see, I gave you a statistic of how the pandemic affects the world and how it affects Africa. So you could see that we need to have our own solution system so that we will now address it, not looking at what happened in Europe, what happened in Americas, because our statistic is very, very different. I also, with your permission, Mr. Moderator, I say media should boost local content to boost the sector recovery. We must talk more about our local leagues. We must talk more about our local athletes. We must promote them. We must promote them. And also, we must look at it as any company that is in our continent that is doing business. Instead of sponsoring European League and La Liga, you must have some content of your local sponsor. Because I was just joking with one of my friends, companies like Heineken. I told them that we drink Heineken here. So it's no need you sponsor you carry the whole sponsorship in Europe and forgetting Africa or our nations. So we must look inward. Fitness and emotional wellness of athletes should be paramount, important to the sporting clubs and administrators. The athletes suffered about 3 months lockdown. So their fitness now is very, very questionable. And then how did they recoup? How did they get back? That have to be looked into. And also the issue of even their take home. We have to review it because the budget must be reviewed. And we must look at a situation whereby we keep the balls on court. We keep the athletes on court so that they don't go to other businesses. Because this pandemic is making people to think out of the box. They might think of other things to do, but we want to keep the athletes and we want to keep sports going. And also, medical emergency requires a boost in medical facilities and personnel. We must look at the sport medicine have to change. We have to improve on some areas we will look at. And we must make sure that the protocol is followed. I want to talk about even the size of the stadium, where we are having 20,000 seater pre-COVID-19. Post-COVID-19, we'll only have it as maybe 10,000, and that is have 50% capacity. And you know what that means to the club? It means a 50% earning from get takings. So all these have, and finally, I see my moderator shaking head. Finally, I want to say that there must be high-level hygiene is needed in the sporting venues. Because before now, the major shortcoming is that most of our venues in Africa, they lack water. They lack water specifically for the high-level hygiene that is required. Today, the level of demand of water in our venues is 2 times what it is pre-COVID-19. And we must keep it, both in the changing room, before you come into the stadium, before you even present in the stadium, you must have this hygiene taken good care of. You should no longer be in short of hygiene, or in fact, hygiene should be a front burner in most of our venues today, because we cannot continue looking at zero spectators rather. So with this, my moderator, I want to say I'll leave it at this, and then going forward, I would expect some questions, and then we'll continue the debate. Thank you for the time, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much, Honorable Sani, and apologies for cutting you short, but we'll definitely request that you stay around to expound on some of the wise counsel that you had for us. I'm glad, and probably I'll request that Ms. Felicity comes back on this and later on the program. You raise a very pertinent point, Honorable Sani, around the importance of keeping athletes around. We will need them when eventually we wake up, and brings me to a very important question for our respective governments. We are seeing recovery plans for the business sector. What recovery plans are there for the sporting fraternity? Most national federations do have obligations just like the businesses, salaries, wages. Some of them have taken out loans to sustain their operations. At a time when revenue streams for clubs have died down, what happens to their sportsmen and women and all the programs that they had? I think it would be nice when you come in, Madam Felicity, tell us if between the Olympic movement and the Ministry of Sports, there is a recovery plan for for the sporting fraternity. I think you raise a very good point, Honorable Sani, around sponsoring local content, because one of the things that we see here in Rwanda is sponsoring has not come to an end. You still see Henken. I like the example you give about Henken. Every weekend they are sponsoring an activity of a DJ here, an online music show and what have you, what is being done on the sporting angle as well. I think COVID-19 is a huge wake-up call for hygiene, and I think hygiene should and must have always been a part of us. So it is, I'm glad that COVID-19 has come to remind us that we should not necessarily be shaking everybody's hand. You know, the sport that Honorable Sani, you and I play is a perfect example. Tennis, you know, it's not very unheard of just walking onto the court and walking off without washing your hands, spitting on court. You know, and you look at footballers who sneeze on the field, and I'm not 100% sure that they necessarily have to do that. But I think it's one of those hygiene habits that COVID-19 has woken us up to say, can we be as hygienic as we should be? So thank you so much again, Honorable Sani, for those kind words. I'll now go to Njenzi. Njenzi is representing the Tourism Office of the Rwanda Development Board. Njenzi, you know, RDB has been at the forefront, one of the biggest stakeholders that we have in Rwanda, as far as the meetings, incentives, and conferences are concerned. You know, we have international sporting events that have been cancelled. We have national sporting events that have been cancelled. The government of Rwanda, through yourselves, has invested heavily in MICE. You have invested heavily in the Arsenal deal, in the PSG deal. It would be very nice to hear from you how we recover and how we move on, and the impact this has had on your investments. Over to you, Njenzi.
Thank you very much, Haba, and all the panelists. I must say that this is a very opportune time to discuss this particular topic of COVID impact and sports. True that RDB is very much involved in sports and supports sports in Rwanda. As you rightly mentioned, Haba, we've been sponsoring some key events locally. For instance, we've been a key sponsor for the Tour de Rwanda, which is a major international cycling event in the country. Since it was 2.2 and now that has been upgraded to 2.1. We've also been with them since 2011, and up to now we are still a sponsor for the Tour de Rwanda. We sponsored the Patriots for the Basketball Africa League. And I think many people follow that, the Kigali Arena, the new sporting facility that we have. As also mentioned, some of the international partnerships, strategic partnerships that we have, like the partnership with Arsenal Football Club and the partnership with Paris Saint-Germain in France, which are strategic partnerships for us as we are looking at high-end tourism, high-value, low-volume tourism in Rwanda. So we partnering with those football clubs is it's an opportunity for us to market not only Rwanda to high-end markets, but also work with them to develop football in Rwanda. And we've worked with them to do coaching clinics with Arsenal and PSG. And we are looking forward to do other activities with them in the academy world and supporting football development in Rwanda in general. And all of that, we do it in close collaboration with the Ministry of Sports, as well as FERWAFA and the other partners. So as you really asked on the recovery plan, I think this is something which is should be a combined effort from the government, private sector, and all other key stakeholders, Rwanda, hospitality establishments, and all that have a part to play in this, to have something holistic, a holistic approach to this crisis. So I'll mention that, for example, when we sponsor Tour de Rwanda, which is a major cycling event, we are looking at promotion of some of our key touristic areas. For example, we promote a lot the Kivu Belt region. As you may rightly know, Kivu Belt, it's a new niche area that we are promoting for tourism attraction, and it has several areas that people can visit, kayaking, cycling, and several other things can be done in that area. So in this line, we're also looking at sports as an area with working together with the Rwanda Convention Bureau, that we see a lot of opportunity in hosting major sports events in Rwanda with the facilities that we have in place now. And we've had some general assembly of like one of the Commonwealth Games Federation held here in Kigali. And we are looking forward to host some events, sporting events in Rwanda. And with our link with major brands like Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain, I think this will help us in that line. So talking about the recovery plan, we need first, I think, to understand what has been the impact, what has been the impact of COVID on sports events. As we all know, sports events have been stopped, not only in Rwanda, but all over the world. And even as these events resume, we see in different parts of the world that some places we see that even the stadiums, when people are playing, they still have no funds coming to these events. So still, there is a major impact which still need to be quantified. I was reading some articles talking about in the US alone, an impact of more than 20, I think, billion US dollars on sports events. Here, when you look at specifically the events that were canceled, there are also a lot. In our MICE sector alone, we had a loss of so far about 42 million US dollars due to the events that were canceled, which shows again the magnitude of the impact that it had on the economy and on sports. Without looking at the other areas, the value chain, and the other partners that are in this sports industry. So we are looking at a recovery plan, not specific, I would say, for sports, but for tourism as an industry in general. And I think this is something that we are working closely with our partners. I know as we resume some of the activities, I know that you may have seen that some of the sports activities have now resumed. People can now do some non-contact outdoor activities like jogging, hiking, cycling, and so on and so forth. So this again, slowly but surely will bring to our sector into active mode. So I think we'll talk about it more as we look at perhaps some of the measures that we are taking as a recovery plan for the tourism sector, which again will apply for the tourism, the sports industry. I don't know if I'll stop there and then we'll discuss more later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Njenzi. You paint a picture that is really an awakening call. That $45 million loss is really a big figure, but I like the way you put it, that all of us as stakeholders are in it together. So we need really a concerted approach. We need a joint approach towards being solution oriented in this. The administrators where they are, the sportsmen where they are, the sportswomen where they are, the umpires, the referees, the sponsors, the media, and all look at it in a kind of concerted approach. Probably again, I'll throw this back to Felicity that we hope that this is just one of the forums in which we'll be discussing this very important thing, because, you know, the conversation moving forward is about waking up, getting up and continuing to run. You will agree with me. One of our major stakeholders, of course, is the media. The media play a big role in communicating, in sponsoring, in broadcasting rights, to mention but a few. Azam is one of the biggest players in the regional sports scene, and we know that you guys at Azam have been doing a fabulous job. I imagine also you have been affected in very many different ways, and you're thinking about how to go about recovery, as Njenzi put it. So Faradhala, we're very, very keen to hear on what you guys in the media sector, and specifically for you, Azam, are up to. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Haba, the moderator. I also need to thank the organizers, the Rwanda Olympic Committee and the Ministry of Sport, having organized these kind of discussions, which I think is very important for both the sport industry, but also the partners and the media, as you just said. I'd also like to thank the previous panelists, Honorable Sani and the representative of Mrs. Belize, for the very good contribution they have given. Just like you put it, Mr. Haba, I think we all need to agree that sports, as of today, plays a very major role and is a big contributor into our economic and social development. This is something we all agree, and this is why you'll see today a number of sponsors and partners getting into sports. I think that was not there before. However, in order to put up my points very clearly, to come to how probably we've been affected as one of the sponsors into the sport industry, we may need to understand that in general, the business model of sports has got actually three main components, or if I may call three main income streams for the sports leagues or athletes or federations. One of them is broadcasting, and when we talk of broadcasting, this is in terms of sales of media rights. And the second being the commercial, this is in terms of sponsorship and advertising partnerships, but also the match revenues, and here we're talking of ticketing and hospitality. Unfortunately, coming to the current situation of COVID-19 and its impact, all these main aspects, three of them have been hugely affected, because if you don't have a match on a ground with people watching, then you shouldn't expect any sales of tickets. You shouldn't expect any deal in terms of sponsorship. You shouldn't expect either any broadcasting rights. So these have been very hugely affected, and here is where we come in. So having said about this again, it's very important to note that this pandemic, you know, unlike what we would learn in the history, Different pandemics have been there, and actually different bad situations have been coming, but always the sport industry has been surviving. Expect that this time around for the COVID-19, this has been totally different, because when it comes to sport in general, the basic understanding of sport is bringing people together, getting together, while the COVID-19 is telling us we need to keep the social distancing. So this is totally against the sport. That means sport has been affected. Unfortunately, we do not know up to today about COVID-19. Every day there is something new about this. So we even don't know whether we're getting back on the field tomorrow or after tomorrow, or even if we are to get back, but how are we getting back? No one knows up to now. So this is again another big challenge, of which I'll say even the sponsors, the media rights holders, up to today have not put up a serious plan of how to recover, except of just planning what can we do in case of this or that. But there is a huge loss that we've already seen, like I think Ndenzi just mentioned. The sport industry worldwide, by the statistics, I think of 2018, shows us that it costs around 750 billion plus USD worldwide. This is in terms of sponsorship and partnerships and ticket sales and all that. But today, as I said, without games, without ticket sales, without broadcasting, nothing can be done. So this has hugely affected all of us together. Now, coming to the sponsors, I think this as well also made us to think twice of the traditional way we've been doing of partnering with whether clubs or athletes or federations. And now we need to reinvent the wheel and think the other way around. Now we need to be measuring our partnership in terms of performances and not in terms of time, because we've seen that no one manages time. So some of the deals have been made, people have signed for 5, 6, 10 years. But today there is a big challenge of now, what do we do with this year that is already gone, and probably 2 or 3 more years are coming and will go? What do we do? So I believe we are learning the hard way, but we are learning on how to manage this all together. So we are facing challenges altogether, just like I've said. We've seen major events, very big events that we were all expecting in the sport industry, like the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games that have been postponed. We've seen the Euro 2020, we've seen the Copa America, and many others. So the sponsorship or the media rights on the other side, much as we're looking at this as a challenge, but again, this is an opportunity on the other side, because the cutoff that COVID-19 has brought of not taking the fans to the stadium to watch their favorite games while cheering together, but there is someone coming in the middle to still link as you're recovering slowly and progressively. There is something that will link what is happening on the ground with those fans, the die-hard who are there at home or somewhere else. And here is where now again the media comes in. But now the big challenge will be, how now do we cope with this new situation? Looking at our fellow brothers and sisters in developed countries where things have evolved for some years, this is quite okay, I would say, because people are now used to watching whatever games on their TV, subscribing for that. So this is quite okay. But when it comes to the African situation, this is a bit challenging, because Africans have not yet embraced the aspect of understanding that we can have whatever we used to have on the pitch or on the stadium. We can still have it either at home, on my phone, on my laptop. This is an aspect that is still very new. Not only that, but also our athletes, federations, clubs have also not understood yet the importance of the broadcasting rights in the new era that we are into. We still take a broadcaster or a sponsor in terms of broadcasting, you know, as a partner, someone who is doing a CSR, which is totally wrong. People need to understand that here we're talking about value for money. Whoever has invested, how is this one getting back? How is he getting the return on investment? I think that we need to understand on both ends. So I believe that it's been a challenge, but we again got the challenge that has helped us to learn the best way to move out of this. Now, with going out of COVID and hoping that COVID is really getting out, because we don't know yet, but we believe that by the end of this, we'll have understood, mostly as Africans, that now it's high time to seal serious deals with serious partners, including broadcasters, which now can help us maximize actually of what we are doing, because sports are doing some great things, but sometimes they're not really getting benefits out of it. But I believe now, while the media industry may as well be, hit in the hardest way, but COVID-19 has taught us, all of us, media side, the broadcasters, the clubs, and athletes, that we need to seal some serious deals that will see all of us benefiting out of it. That we also need to understand, despite of the COVID-19, where the world is moving is no longer a thing of getting someone for 2 or 3 hours on a stadium or somewhere else on a playground, but someone needs to get the product, the content you're giving, as Honorable mentioned before. The local content we are looking for, basically, we've got it. But how do we package it to deliver to those who are in need of it? We still don't have that. So media here will play a very big role that I believe we'll all understand, and we are now understanding by the situation. As you can see in some countries who are recovering progressively from this COVID-19 impacts, you can see that now games have started being played, but without fans. It's awkward, but yes, you need to take whatever is being played there to the fans, and there is only one way to get it to the fans. This is the media way. So how do we do it? The media will not invest for nothing. They will need, of course, a return on the investments. So you need to package your product. The media comes in the middle, take it to the fans and those who are in need of it, and then you all share the benefits. So ultimately, consumers who are fans will also want to stay entertained. And this is also where the media plays a big role, because they need to come in to make sure they get the best content, to get it to their customers who are the clients and the fans at the same time, so that they can keep them entertained. So I believe much as we've been hit so much, but again, it's an opportunity to come back strong and high and seal serious deals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farajala, for really that very candid talk. The stadiums are empty, there are no ticket sales, no how do we rethink broadcasting rights? And also a wake-up call for the national federations. If you're a sports administrator and you're basically telling us, Farajala, that gone are the days when you just say, I have a league, it has 20 clubs in Division 1, 10 clubs in Division 2, men and women, and put in money, $100,000 US, take it or leave it. I think you're waking us up as sports administrators, as people in different walks of life, to understand the product that we are selling. And what I read from what you're saying, that if the stadium is no longer there for the fans, but it is there only for the athletes. My reading from what you're saying is
that's right. That's right.
Shouldn't emphasis on the athlete? Yes, the athlete as the main product that they're selling, and not necessarily the venue. What can we do to improve this talent? And back to your talent detection program, Felicity and your colleagues at NOC, isn't that where probably a lot of resource should be going ahead of infrastructure, or comparatively to infrastructure? And what about the change? Like back to Engineer Sunny's earlier comment around the action-packed tennis competition that is currently going back in Serbia, a best of 3 tennis tournament, or can we have a short, sharp football tournament, maybe 8-a-side with a smaller football field and what have you, that's, can take a shorter time? Because Farajala, you did say something that not too many people have managed to capture, that we don't have control over time. So the little time that we have, we need to maximize on it. Now we do, thank you so much again, Farajala, for that. I hope I've done justice in terms of understanding what you have said, but especially around mindset change. And later, I will ask that Farajala, you make a comment around alternative media, especially social media and the like, and where you guys see yourselves playing in that space. Donald Rukare has been itching to say something. I will ask you, you mute your mic and then give us your question or comment.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you, Charles. Greeting to my good friends, Sunny and Madame, Felicity, and everybody on the call. I've enjoyed the presentation. My question is more of a question, probably comment. The question around how do we build and create brands for our athletes to make them have a value addition? I think one of the biggest problems we have in the Global South is we don't seem to have very strong athlete brand that we can sell to the likes of Azam. So I'd like to hear probably from Sani and others, how do we build our athletes brand in order to make them attractive and build that value proposition? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Donald. And this fits in with what Farajala was talking about, the product that we are selling. So I think there is a general consensus, and probably I request Sunny that you come in on this, your reaction towards that. There's a general consensus that the biggest brand that we have today is the athlete, the sportsman and woman that we're talking about. Thierry, I did get your comments around rethinking how we manage clubs and national federations. You know, what is sport? What is sport? Sport, is it sport for all, or do we want to do competition? If it is sport for all, then we're just talking about health and being fit. If it's competition, then it's about the athlete. So thank you so much, Thierry, for those comments as well. So over to you, Engineer Sunny, for your reactions and add-ons. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so very much, moderator. I listened to my friend there about branding the athletes post-COVID. Of course, that is a very big task, but talking about athletes, you cannot do it in the absence of the clubs, the trainers, the coaches, and the agents. The contact among these key people at the moment is comatose, I must say, because of the effect of the COVID-19. But of course, looking at post-COVID-19, we'll have to reposition, if you like, the branding system. And what will be the new branding system? We have to consider their fitness. They'll be locked down for over 3 months, and it might be longer. I mean, what is their fitness status? And also, we must consider that the fitness, is it enough for them to compete so that we can project them, so that we can promote them to either companies as spectators? We have to also look at, since the lockdown must have taken toll on their fitness, what effort are we going to make sure that athletes attain and sustain their pre-COVID-19 fitness? So all these have to be rebuilt. And these are the things that will be rebuilt so that we can now showcase them. What proper measure are we put in place that will ensure that they are tested before the game, so that they will have self-confidence to say, look, I can go into the field, I can go into my tournament venue because I'm fit and tested, and I can now give my best. So all these provisions have to be made before we can now say, okay, we can promote either the athletes or the championship or the game itself. So that is what I just want to add on that. But in any case, it is longer than that, but because of time, let me just keep it at this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer Sunny. If you have a comment to make around prioritization of the investments that the different stakeholders have to come, especially around the product. And because you also come from a branding background and you know, you're promoting the big brands, especially around Paris Saint-Germain and Arsenal. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah.
That was for Eve. Eve James.
Sorry, can you come again? You're talking about privatization of brands?
Yes, Don did ask a question around promoting the brand of an athlete. So and I want you to link this with you guys and the investments you've been making around the brands of the clubs and the brand and especially the infrastructure, and see, do you guys foresee a situation where you might change your investment strategy?
Right. So thank you for that. I think that's a very good question from Don. So I think for us, what we have been doing really is really beneficial for us in terms of promotion of the country. As we mentioned that we are sponsoring or partnering with Arsenal and Paris Saint-Germain. When we look at it, we look, for example, at one of the sponsorship that we've done in the past, looking at local or international. If you look at those that we have been working with, we've seen really our investments being paying back. For example, if you look at Arsenal, we've seen with the partnership with Arsenal a lot of returns in terms, not only in terms of visitors that come from the UK, particularly for the UK, we've seen, for example, a 5% growth in arrivals from the UK after we started this partnership. And we can link it directly to this sponsorship that we have with them. But also, even if we look at other events that we have in the country, for example, if you look at the Kigali International Peace Marathon, I think this is something that really promotes the destination to the world, and it's done everywhere. And for example, we look at other major events around the globe, like the World Cup. These are really huge events that not only promote the destination, but also bring people who come to the destination, they spend the destination, they get to know about the destination, but as well, they promote the destination once they go back to their countries. So I would say that one has, of course, as my colleagues were saying, you look at if it is in line with your strategy, if it contributes to the promotion of the country, for in our case, to make the country a vibrant and a dynamic destination, but also if it aligns with the standards that we are looking for. But in the case of RDB, we look at big and also small events alike. So I would say really that one has to look at these, especially after COVID. One will look at really events that and sports activities that are beneficial and that will benefit the destination. So I think on that, I'll leave it at that. And maybe my colleagues also will compliment me on that question.
Thank you, Eve. I know, Felicity, you must be itching. We pointed out some quite a number of issues that needed to be addressed. But one of the things that Engineer Sunny has said is around professionalism of the athletes being put to test is what I picked. You know, if you're going to come out of this lockdown, and for example, you're not fit. You see, I think earlier on somebody said, I think it was Farah Jalla, that we are in all this together and it has to be a concerted approach. To what extent are you individually perceived as a professional if you're not working on your own personal fitness? Are you the type that waits for the coach to tell you this and tell you that? Some of them, and this is Africa, it does happen a lot in our day-to-day lives, are only able to put food on their table, you know, from the allowances that they get or the match fees and things like that they get. Now that revenue stream is not there. That means they are probably feeding on just ugali and soup. To what extent is that going to do justice to their feeding and nourishment as professionals? So we are indeed faced with very tough times, but I think it's a true test to what we call a professional. Is a professional that person who only earns a living out of the sport, or there is more that should define a professional? Felicity, over to you with your remarks. Thanks. Yeah, please unmute your mic. Please unmute your mic. We missed what you said earlier.
Is it okay now? Is it okay? Okay. First of all, I appreciate all the great ideas that I've heard from all different panelists. Yeah, they are so much interesting that we are all, it looks as if we are all in a dilemma of looking for what can be done, which is not easy. So for Mr. Sani, he mentioned about the review of sport policy to change the sport policies. When you think of that, it's not something that is easy because I don't see how you can say, let's say for the football game, how you're going to change the rules and regulation for the football game to, you know, to start or to end. It's really a complex. So we need to have great awareness. We need to keep talking, to keep brainstorming to find out the solution. He also mentioned about to encourage investors. Yes, it's good, but then even the investors are also facing it hard because they are all going into a loss. If we look at these Olympic Games that were postponed, it was a great loss for the Olympic movement, and it is not just the IOC, but even the athletes were affected. So it really needs something to go deep and see what can be done. We need also to talk to the federations, at least to encourage the athletes, not to wait for the coaches, not to wait for the administrators to come and tell them what to do. They need to be practicing sports at their own leisure, just so that they may keep fit, so that when they come back to the games, then they are very fit and they find that still life can go on without going so much back. For Rwanda National Olympic Committee, we have tried to keep in touch with the athletes. We have tried to support them in all ways possible so they may keep, you know, doing their practices, especially those who are supposed to go for the Olympic Games. We have kept on the Olympic Continental Scholarship ongoing. It's we didn't stop it, it's ongoing, just to support athletes, to encourage them, and at least to feel that they have some people behind who are also filling the same gap, and we are working with them on a daily basis. In the collaboration with the Ministry of Sports, we are trying to increase this conversation on TVs, on radios, so that we may increase, you know, this hygiene issues of, you know, washing hands, taking a 1 meter distance, so that at least they may have that knowledge of at least squeezing, not to get infected as fast as they should be if they are not well trained. For the RDB, we really appreciate that they have taken in to participate in sports, and this has supported sports in the country's economy. It has raised at least some percentage in the country's economy. They have mentioned a lot of meetings that we have been, organizing, especially the CGF, but they have forgotten the international conference that they also supported in for women in sports on international level. Yeah, whereby we were able to host about 300 participants from about 80 countries. All this was supported by RDB. So you realize that with sports, it can also be also a tool to change in the country's image from better to best. So it is really interesting to have RDB on board, and they really always follow us to understand our way forward, to understand our programs, so that they may chip in, because we really believe that sports also has an improvement on tourism. So with the media, we need to work together so that we may keep on these debates, to see how we can go about it, to see how long we can wait, because it's not easy. I'm sure we all go with sleepless nights, thinking of what to do next, thinking of where is the future sport. But let's pray hard that we may have this miracle from God to make sure that at least this pandemic is gone forever, and then we come back to normal. So I think, yeah, those are my few recommendations that at least I would think of. Let's keep, brainstorming and see until we reach maybe a conclusion.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Madam. As an East African, when you mention wait for miracles from God and we relate it with COVID-19, I get a little bit scared, because some of our neighbors who have relied entirely on God's grace, it has not turned out very positively for them. So I'm sure that's not what you entirely meant, Madam. Now, Farajala, we are living in trying times, and you did mention mindset change. Broadcasting rights. How would you, if you own the club, how would you reposition it, considering your media background, Farajala?
Thank you very much, Haba. The first thing I'll do, and I would have done even this before even COVID-19, by changing the mindset, I need to know that if I am an African club, I am totally different from Arsenal, from Barcelona, from any other club the other side of the world. This is one of the big challenges that we have in our continent. I'm very sure different participants here from different countries will attest to this. Some of our athletes, some of our federations, some of our clubs try to behave like, an Arsenal club, an FA, federation from UK or wherever. And this is totally different. And this comes again to the question that just people commented on. I also want to come back on that, on the packaging of the product that you're talking about. Let us not try to pretend to be the same when we're not the same. These people, they're not only advanced in technology and these other things, even in sport, the way of doing. They are so far from us. So we can't just jump in one day and get there. We need to build our own systems, our own sport industry, and grow with it. So my point here is, I think it's high time that we can copy whatever we think is good from the other side of the continent. But again, we shouldn't forget the African touch. This is very important. Africans, if there is something they have never lost, probably we are losing slowly, but at least we still have, is our culture. And yet, we are trying to coming to sport, we are copying whatever we are copying from the other side and trying to forget our own things, including the culture. It's good that we have RDB here and the Olympic Committee. So I think it's now high time that we do combine the sport that you are doing, being it soccer, cricket, basketball, or whatever, but plus the other side of our culture. Try to imagine an event whereby we know very well. For example, I'll take an example of Rwanda. You have a game, you can call it a big game, one of the biggest games in soccer or basketball, over the weekend in the evening, where people are supposed to be watching and going to the stadium, but you have probably half of the stadium or even a quarter of it. And then, even on top of that, you are still very okay to organize a game on a weekday at, let's say, 3 p.m. and you expect people to come. And you expect sponsors to come and say, come on, guys, I have funds so you can come and look at them. But this is totally wrong. So the question should be, why are people not turning to these, these sport activities, come and watch, sometimes even for free, sometimes for a very cheaper price? For me, I think the big problem is the package you're giving them is not enough for them to spend their time there. So why don't we combine a few things of what we have in our culture, knowing our system, our families, the way they live? I know I have a football game, for example, at 3 on a Saturday, but let me try to put up around things that people like. There is the Guhamiriza things there, there is some other things there around the stadium. So someone can come with a family. If it's, let's say, the wife who is a fan of football will come and live there, the husband and the 2 kids. They're also watching something else they like, and she goes there. After that, she comes back, and people get to enjoy. So we can try to combine a few things that we have so that we can repackage that product that we have to make it worthy. This also goes to our colleagues from RDB. One of the complaints that we'll hear from mostly tourists and people coming in to visit in our countries, in Africa in general, is they don't get much of entertainment. This is what they tell you. I'm very sure everyone must have heard of this. But yet we have a lot of things going on. But the problem is they are scarce. We are not putting them together. If we know we have 2 big games, for example, there is a football there is basketball here, there is cricket there. So why do you put all of these at the same time in the same day? And you know that this will actually be one of the ways of attracting people. Why don't we put it together through organizations, ministries, and Olympic committees, make sure that the big brand and big product that are being exposed are not all at the same time, so that we can maximize, the people coming to participate. So now, coming back to your question, I think the first thing I'll do is I'll need to understand as a club owner that I am an African club owner and I have to do it the African way. So I have to reinvest my will. And how do I do it? First is, let me repackage my product, make it attractive for anyone who would want to come. I even don't need to go and call people. When I package it, I brand it very well, people will come for it. And then once people come for it again, as I said, let's grow together. I shouldn't think because Arsenal got, 10 million USD, so I need to get something like that. Let me go with my size. Let's start small and grow together. When someone has got in and you show him, the importance of your product, it will be very difficult for this sponsor to go out. So bring them in first and then make it stronger. And of course, make sure that you keep these sponsors and others will come in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faradala. We do not have too much time left. I will take a few of your comments. Anna, I think is from Zimbabwe. She says one of the greatest challenges is the self-confidence in sourcing solutions respective to Africa by Africans. And I think this falls into the point that you raised, Faradala, around what is unique to us as Africans. And Anna says the Rwandan strategy is a good, strong case study in which the National Olympic Committee should share with the continental body, and that's ANOCA, as an aspect of knowledge sharing. Wase Denise says she highly recommends, I kindly recommend that the sports organizations bring different social media challenges, workouts or drills that engage athletes. I think, Faradala, I did ask you this question around social media and where you're positioning yourselves as a media company. Please note this somewhere that you give me your response towards that. Festus says, we know RDB has a recovery plan for tourism and business in general. Can RDB representative tell us what might be in plan for sport as well? As he mentioned, sport is an economic developmental tool. So probably we'll start with you, Njenzi. Come back to you, Faradala. Njenzi, to you first.
Right, thank you again, Haba. I think there are very many good comments that have come in that are really, really helping us again to strategize better even as we move towards this recovery period post-COVID, even now as we are into this recovery time. So maybe if I touch quickly on this question from Festus on RDB's recovery plan. So RDB's recovery plan for the tourism industry, as you all know, tourism is a priority for the country and central to the realization of the vision being 2024 and 2050, and really for looking into the modernization of the national economy. So tourism being the primary source of foreign exchange currency, after this pandemic, we looked at what has been really the impact of COVID before addressing it and putting in place a recovery strategy. So we didn't go very far after looking at that, and we are still looking at even right now the impact that it has had for us to continue strategizing. But we looked upon the guidelines that were provided by the UN WTO and their call to action, and they provided really pillars from which economies should recover on. And these were into, one was managing the crisis and mitigating its impact. So this particular pillar, you know, that it was looking at how really we should encourage job retention and really sustain those that are mostly vulnerable SMEs and other self-employed people. So we really looked at this, but this has been, I think, an approach overall by the government, and there has been a lot of measures put in place to ensure that there is not only dialogues of how employees could be retained, being for the private institutions, but also other employers. So this has been ongoing really, and there's also a support for companies that have been facing this. I'm sure that you have heard of the economic, the resilience fund that was put in place by the government. And this provides several sectors, and tourism is one of the priority sector. So this is one of the mechanisms as well that has been put in place by the government with a recovery fund in place and a recovery plan that has been put in place and now being implemented. So the other areas that we have been looking is really to look at incentives that can be put in place that can help revitalize the economy, but impact as well tourism and other value chains sectors. Into this, I think you may have heard the CIT, the corporate income tax that was and payee. There was some waiver on those taxes for some periods depending on the sector, and for tourism particularly, and it was 3 months. But we are still talking with the other institutions that are in charge to see what kind of incentives can be put in place for different sectors, but in particular that are in the tourism value chain to ensure that there is continuation. So in line with that, of course, we need to maintain our MICE sector strong, and there has been a discussion with partners, some of them the MasterCard Foundation, to ensure that there is development in terms of skills training across the sectors, people, and this has started. There are talks with the other partners like GIZ, IFC to ensure that we have programs in place that can come and address some of these challenges that are being faced right now. So yeah, those are some of the stimulus packages that are being discussed, and there are ongoing dialogues with the private sector and the government to see really what can be done and which kind of, how we can accelerate this recovery process. And yeah, as we resume slowly activities, economic activities, you may know that we have some guidelines now in place that will guide not only our hospitality, tourism sector, to ensure that there are standards that people are going to be following. And this is very key as well for sports, that there are some guidelines that are going to be followed post-COVID. We know, of course, some of the guidelines that are general hygiene guidelines that have been put in place by the Ministry of Health that are going to be helpful to ensure social distancing and all those hygiene related aspects that are very important. But also we need to see at the market itself. What do we do differently? What are the new approaches, the strategies, as Ndagano was saying, that we should implement, and so on and so forth. So communication is very key. We have been doing communication around it. You may have seen the campaign that we launched on Visit Rwanda Soon, which again should be coupled with other measures, and we are also doing a lot of digital as well as digital marketing to ensure that we keep not only our different markets in Rwanda, but also abroad, and the MICE sector know what is happening in the country, what are the measures being taken, that Rwanda will be ready soon again to be visited. So those are some of the things that are being done currently, but also we look at enforcing those measures. We're looking at domestic and regional tourism, which again brings all these aspects of sports, cycling, cricket. All these sports are going to be vital as we resume into domestic and regional tourism. So yeah, we're looking at that, and we're looking for people who have packages, products that can be offered, so that we put it all that together as we move into this recovery process. And we think really the new normal will look good. Will look good for the tourism, and it has been a very good time to sit back, relax, and strategize. And we think we are going to go back even better and stronger.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Eve, for that very elaborate one. I do hope that, Felicity, you've taken note of that. Njenzi talks about the value chain, the tourism value chain, and sports is an integral part of that entire value chain. From the time we talk about regional tournaments, by the time they come in, get through the airports or the different borders, use our transport, stay in our hotels, but even our local competitors, they feed in our local restaurants, they stay in the hotels when they're in residential camps. So they're really an integral part. The more reason why I think at the level of the National Olympic and Sports Committee, you need to push on that door very hard to ensure that that stimulus package, you get some of it. We are coming towards the end of the call of the conference. I will give each of you time. And Jens, you'll bear with me that because you spoke last, I will spare you the burden of having to give us your conclusive remarks. But you did give us a direction, which is the new normal. And that's become a coined phrase that we are all using. The new normal, Engineer Sani, Ndagano, Feliste, is going to be very different. Things are not going to be the same again. We expect clubs and national federations to continue taking this bull called financial autonomy by the horns, as Thierry calls it. We expect to look at sport as a business that should bring a return. I'll call upon you one by one, Engineer Sani, Ndagano, and lastly, Feliste, to give us in 1 minute what you think the new normal is going to be in as far as sport and post-COVID-19 is going to be.
Thank you very much, moderator, for listening attentively, and I want to say well done to the team. But specifically, I want to say the center of all pre and post COVID-19 situation are the athletes, and let's keep the ball on the court. And we have to look at how the post-COVID-19 affects both the athletes, the clubs, the sponsors, and the government. And we have to also, on this note, thank and appreciate the Rwanda for using tourism effectively and using sport effectively to perhaps relaunch post-genocide Rwanda. Because I've personally attended more than 5 conferences from ANOCA to NOC to CGA in Rwanda, and that is increasing visibility. So sports, if you like, is very important, and it has been in the value chain of revamping the economic and the face of Rwanda. So, and I'll suggest strongly too that they adopt the tax rebate thing, because they need the private sector. We need the private sector. We need them to come back to it, no matter how tight they are. Let them continue supporting, because we must keep the balls on court. And I think the economic value of sports, the social value of sports, and also the youth development value of sport is very high. And we are going to live among the competition with other priorities of the continent, health, agriculture, and other. So we must keep the balls on court. Thank you, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Engineer Ndanusa. It was a great pleasure listening to you, and thank you for your decades of wise counsel that you have shared with us. Athletes is the message that we are getting there. And over to you, Even Jenzi, on your new normal and where we go from here.
Right, thank you again. So the new normal.
I must apologize. I didn't intend but since you're there, I'm not going to take the mic away from you, but I'll say it will be 30 seconds.
Well, so yes, so we are looking forward to working again very closely with our partners as we go into this journey of recovering. As we're looking forward to the starting of the domestic and regional tourism. So we'll be happy really to engage all the stakeholders again, and yeah, involve them in the campaigns, and also work together to have the sector recovered. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ndagano, over to you. Your conclusive remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Abba. And once again, I need to thank the Rwanda Olympic Committee for having invited us. On behalf of Azam, we've been a very good partner of sports federations and clubs, and we'll always be a good partner with sport federations and clubs as long as we have very good mutual understanding. But before I conclude, I can't forget the question you raised to me on the social media, on how we cope with the social media. I think this is a very big challenge as well, but as always, the challenge comes in with the opportunities. Like what we are experiencing with the group in Azam, as I said, Now with all the deals, all the partnerships, all the sponsorships that we make, whether with the club or with the federation, one of the key things that we consider is how active are these ones in terms of social media. Because remember, what you're looking for is to get the good content we're having to our clients who are the viewers. So social media is also one of the ways you can get through with this message, with this content. So this, I think, much as it's a big challenge, but again, it's an opportunity that you need to utilize, because if we need to win a war, you have to go on the ground and fight with your enemies. So to conclude, I just want to say, being a club, being an athlete, being a federation, in such crisis, this is COVID-19, we hope it will go very soon, something else might come up, but our clubs, our federations, our athletes need to be very well prepared, and to know that any club or anyone with high liquidity will always come out of this very safe. So we need to be ready for anything that might come up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ndagano.
Moderator, can I just say, because of the short time of this conference, my papers are there, I've sent them, so you can distribute them. If there are any questions that are coming out of it, I'm ready to take them. Thank you very much, and well done.
Thank you so much, Engineer Sani. I did read elaborately your paper. It is very well prepared. It's extremely articulate, and the Olympic committee that prepared this will share it with all the participants. Thank you so much. Felicity? Please unmute your mic. Thank you.
Before I give the closing remarks, I would like to inform you that there is another webinar which is scheduled on 19th June 2020, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. So please invite others and let everyone come on board. So for my closing remarks, I had a lot to talk about, but because of time, I'm just going to say the COVID-19 pandemic brings changes in our consciousness, in our workplaces, and in our community. From all this, sports should come out stronger. After all, it is the role of sports. Stay for the social distance, stay safe, stay strong. Also, we should think of the safeguarding of athletes, improve sports tourism agenda, need more participation in the promotion of sports. Thank you all for this insightful webinar, and let us all work on the recommendation given here. I do extend my sincere gratitude to the National Olympic Committees that have been with us, the Uganda National Olympic Committee, Zimbabwe, and Egypt. It was a pleasure having you, and we hope to keep in touch as soon as possible. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Engineer Sane, it was a great pleasure. Mr. Ndagano and Monsieur Yves Genzi, thank you so much for your very, very fruitful and valuable remarks. Madame Felicity and everyone else at the Olympic and Sports Committee, thank you for putting this together. It was a pleasure moderating this afternoon session, and I wish you all a blessed stay. Thank you, and please stay safe.
Thank you too.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you, my team. Thank you. Yeah. So, okay. Zoom finished. Yeah, keep switching off.